All right, it looks like we've got a few people online, so I'm gonna go excuse me, go ahead and get started here. Let's see. So I'm just gonna kind of run through what I've been working on this week. I had some family stuff come up, so I had spent some time away from working on IR for a little bit, but I still got a few good things done. So what I'm working on at the moment is actually some lighting code. I've been tweaking and tuning that, and I'll show some of the shader progress in a little bit. That's the big piece. But I've been working on, I guess you could call it a quality of life feature. So let me disconnect this locomotive, move it forward a bit, stop it, put this back into normal mode, and head right on back. And as soon as I couple, oh, come on, brake, 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 there we go. all of the cars turn on. You can see the wheels, the light level on the wheels hasn't changed significantly, but the light level on the actual coaches has changed. Excuse me for just a sec. Just finished a little bit of a greasy burger for dinner. And yes, I know these are the wrong coaches for this locomotive, and it needs a tender. But again, this is just a little example test world. So what this means, I probably should have said what I'm doing before actually doing it, is cars now are lit up from the inside. So even though it's nighttime or close to nighttime, it looks like there's some very basic lighting going on. And if it's brighter during the day, the lighting turns on. If you're going through a tunnel, or if it's dark somewhere, the internal lights flick back on. And yeah, it works surprisingly well. What I don't have working is cab lighting, which is a little bit different. Excuse me. So I'm trying to think of a good way of lighting the cab portions of locomotives in a way that doesn't look weird. Because there's some piping that exists in the locomotive, some piping that exists outside the locomotive. It's not really set up for that. So I don't think I'm going to do in-cab true lighting, and maybe just have it be that if you have the firebox lit, it just shows as a much brighter... It kind of... It's a sort of a fake effect to swamp out the view. Let's see. Admiral in chat suggests adding a flicker to the light that when the locomotives couple up. That would be kind of cool. Let's try doing that right now. I've got this code checked out and ready to go, so let me start playing with it. I'm going to try and do a little bit more live coding / live debugging in this stream. Let's see. Andy Root also has a good question. So before I do the flickering, the way excuse me, I've tentatively defined this is in the car passenger definitions. I define has internal lighting. So inside the definition, which is like you can think of as like the JSON file. It's kind of a combination of the JSON file, sorry, combination of the JSON file and the object model. That's where you can define if there's any sort of internal lighting in the stock. And for passenger cars, it defaults to true, because it's a new thing and a lot of packs don't have it and won't be updated for that. And you could implement this for other stuff pretty easily. It's like car passenger right here. This is where it says, does it have a locomotive? If every ticket says, okay, am I coupled to a locomotive? And I could probably run this every 5 ticks, but this is a really, really quick function, so I'm not too worried about it. But effectively, all you have to do is implement in your either passenger car or freight car code or locomotive code some variant of this function, which it likely will look at the definition and at some sort of dynamic value. So this right here, this is where we can add the flickering code. How do I want to do this? I think what I can do... I think I can probably do it in here. Let's just try this out. Got locomotive tick. So we can do if not has. It's a little bit funky. Alright, Henry off the table. Let's see, how do I want to do this? This would be a little bit funky, but I think it should work. So we can do if it already had the locomotive set. Or if it hasn't already done that. If it didn't have a locomotive before, we can now set the get locomotive tick equals 0. And then inside of here we can do got locomotive tick plus plus, or if. Let's just say that's less than, I guess it'll, let's say, maxed out at 4 seconds. Alright, so now effectively what we've added is a counter that will, actually, this will actually be easier to do get tick count. Yeah. So now what we can do is, and then we'll add a condition down here. So this right here tells us when exactly the coupling happened. So got locomotive tick equals get tick count. And I'm just going to default this to -1 for now. This is a little bit of a hack, but it shouldn't be that bad. Okay, so we've got, if it's -1, then it's always on. It was connected when the world loaded. But what we need to do now is say, okay, if it just coupled, or coupled within the last, let's say, 40 ticks, we can turn it on and off using a modulus operator. And this will be a little bit technical, but actually showing this off shouldn't take too long. I've also got to quit out of the game. Okay, so we can say get tick count minus get got locomotive tick divided by 10. Cast as integer modulo 2 equals 0. Okay, so it's automatically an int. Get rid of that. So this will be for the first 10 ticks. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Just gonna move this around. Okay, so if that's that. Oops. Oops. Organize this nicely. So if it's always on, or if the difference, current tick minus that, is greater than 80. So if this is if it's been active for 4 seconds, or if the difference divided by 10, so this would update every half of a second, modulo 2 equals 0. I think that will work. So it'll flicker a little bit and then go straight on. That should be an interesting effect. So we'll boot up Minecraft and give it a go. We'll see if I got my logic right the first try. And here we go. Set that to night, and we should be able to just toggle it by doing that. Okay, that worked. Maybe not the effect you were looking for, but let's I can play with that a little bit. So I think I want to shorten it a little bit. So let's set that to 50. And so it's blinking on and off. I want it to blink faster. If I wanted it to blink faster, I would reduce this to 4, I think. And code is reloaded. There's some things I can hot reload the code for, other things I can't. So off. Alright, what does the stream think of that effect? I'm feeling that's probably still a little bit long. Let's just set that to a second to blink. Anybody? Admiral? I think... Curious if the stream is behind. I should ask in chat. It'd probably be faster. Okay. Yeah, I can do that. I think I want to reduce that, the timing as well. I want it to be a subtle effect. Yeah, add some randomness to the flicker. That I could do. Okay. If I lose audio, it's because there is a cat currently playing with and chewing on my headphone cable. Thanks, Henry. Alright, so how would I add some randomness to this? Let's see. So math.random generates what? So between 0 and 1, so we want to multiply this by 4 and turn this into an integer. After we do that. And I'll extend this a little bit. Uh-oh. Kaboom! Something didn't like that. Well, oh, divide by 0. Yep, divide by 0. Math random plus 1. And then we'll reduce this to 2. Let's see how that looks. And if the randomness doesn't look good, I can always just set it back to the value it was before. Actually, I'm also going to get rid of the multiply by 2 there and see how that works. Nick's got a good question. While loading, would it be feasible to set up a subscriber for change of locomotive state? That is... I think that could make sense if we start doing this in more places. I think this is the only place where I'm really depending on if there's a locomotive or not attached. But if that becomes a thing that happens more than just this one place in the code. Ooh, that's blinky. That's too blinky. Then yeah, I'll move that to somewhere a little bit more common. So let's... Oop. What is that going to complain about? It's always true. And again, I've got the blinking going a little bit long. That's not great. Math.random times 4 plus 1. Something I'm doing is weird. It's maybe minimum of 2 ticks, maximum of 8. Got my order of operations correct. Nope, that's odd. I feel like I'm doing something wrong here. We'll see. Sorry, you gotta get off. What am I doing wrong? Math at random times 8. So that should be between 0 and 8 plus 4 turned into an integer. Huh. Oh, you know what? I think if this is the bigger this the bigger this value is, it should be slower. Let's go back to math.random plus 1 times 4. Do not play with my cables, you little munchkin. Hi, I know. I'm not paying attention to you, kitty cat, but... Ah, off the keyboard. There we go. It blinks a little fast. Let's bump that up to 2. I mean, a little bit of flicker's okay. I do actually kind of like that. Let's reduce the time a little bit. Okay, I like that. What does chat think? Okay, well, so Nick says that looks pretty good. And I think this happens if I do it on any of these. Yeah. Cool. Well, I will leave that there instead of spending the next half an hour fiddling with stuff, but yeah, I'm reasonably happy with that. Let's see, what else do I want to show off? Oh, I enabled in-car lighting. Not just the visual that looks a little bit brighter inside of there, but actually doing the extra bright lights. There's a few different ways of doing this, and I may actually switch this to the other method real quick. Just to see how it looks, because this looks really weird with shaders. Yeah. Yeah, if this isn't too boring, I'll hop in and try and do this in a slightly different method. Though I should probably commit what I have here first. Give me just a moment. Cool. Okay, so there's effectively two different types of lighting in immersive railroading, or I guess even in Minecraft in general. There's the color of the light map color. So what that does is Opengl multiplies the colors in your model or in whatever you're rendering by a set light value. That's like if you that's effectively how torches work. So if I plop down a torch here, each of these are different light levels, and there's a gradient you can put into Minecraft, and there's both a sky and a block level, but we really only care about block lighting at this point. Or sky lighting? I don't know. So we've got that. So that's how I'm making the coaches look. Parts of the coaches look a little bit brighter. I'm setting that light map value. The way I'm doing this interior lighting, you can see how the edges aren't quite as distinct, which is kind of nice for lighting, but it's also a little bit funky. And this is the same thing I do up front for the running lights. Is I disable the lighting engine entirely and just render it at full brightness. Same thing with this. And this, I like this even more. This looks, I mean, it's very subtle, but it looks better than it did before because the interior of the light is set to full bright, so the reflector actually has a brightness value. So when you look really closely, it looks good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Oh, while I'm distracted and doing stuff, one thing worth showing is that I got this working for model gauge as well. So, isn't that cute? It's just an itty-bitty little locomotive with its own lighting. Alright, so back over here. Let's see. Oop. And my computer's not happy. Let me close out of a few things. Okay, that's a little bit better. So, we now have those two different types of lighting, and we actually use both of them in here. So we're going to do draw with bright groups. This is the full bright. This is some of the bowels of how it actually renders components and does translations and stuff like that. And I don't really need to go into there now, but effectively what happens, and this is something about the modelers will care about, is if a group contains full bright, then it's put in a separate list of things to render, and it's rendered at that new brightness level with this stuff disabled. However, I'm going to change this to instead be a standard OpenGL light map. And I'm going to disable all of these. Drop this in. So for those of you who are familiar with Java, you can notice that I'm doing something a little bit weird here. I got used to, in Python, the ability to say, okay, when you enter this block of code, run some setup code, and when you exit this block of code, run some teardown code. So one of the problems with mods in Minecraft, and this is going to be a little bit ranty, and a lot of modding programs, is you can do what's called polluting OpenGL state. And polluting OpenGL state is when you change generic settings, or I guess default settings in OpenGL for rendering images or effectively anything, and don't put it back the way you found it. So Ier's been guilty of that in the past, but I've removed most of the most of that using blocks like this. So by doing this weird thing in Java, I'm saying, okay, save the state of the light map before you enter this code. And when you exit this code, restore the light map to the way it was. So we're going to set the block light to full bright. We're going to set the sky to full bright as well. So let's see. So before, it looks like this. And when I apply, oops, come on, there we go. It's thinking. There we go. When I apply this code, give it a sec. Okay, so that got a bit duller, but it still works. So this isn't as significant as excuse me. It's not as significant of an effect. It's still sort of visible, but there's also some. This group I think in Blender is actually. What color is that? Yeah, so that's a fairly dark group. So if this was a brighter color, it would, excuse me, show up quite a bit brighter, as this stuff up here does. So I think what I'm going to do is, because I'm kind of curious, is I want to show you guys what this looks like with the Optifine shaders enabled, and then copy over this jar and show what it looks like with Optifine in this new state. And this will take just a sec. And I'll try and answer some questions along the side. So can full bright thing be toggleable? I think I'm going to set it so that you can toggle like the coach lights and toggle the locomotive running lights. I'm still figuring out what those controls are going to look like, so if anyone's got suggestions, feel free to either put them here in the comments or message me on Discord. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's going to look like for this release. What's likely going to happen is I'm going to put something out with lighting always enabled, and then as I start redoing user interfaces in some of the next releases, go back through and add actual toggle buttons and start breaking them out into control groups and stuff like that. Though I'm honestly not entirely sure. So let's chat about that throughout the week. Okay, so let's build that. Actually, first, sorry. Build that. That's already built. Here's my instance. So we can copy over Universal Mod Core. Then we have to copy over Immersive Railroad. I don't know what the actual version. Oh, it's going to be that one. Okay. see. That is something I completely forgot, Andrew, is adding it to the control augments. Yes. Yes, if I don't remember, bother me throughout the week and ask me if I've done that, because that should be, well, I'll put it this way, if I do in-cab controls, or like, sorry, in-cab, or like in-user interface controls for turning the lights on and off, I will make sure to add that to Open Computers and to the control augments, because that would be useful. Yeah. And Admiral, I'm trying to avoid adding any new keybinds. I may even take a few away for stuff like the bell, just because there's a lot of keybinds, and the less I can get away with, the better. I mean, technically, I'm already adding 3, but that is what it is. IR, also just on the side, the IR jar takes a fairly long amount of time to build. So, oh right, so I was going to boot up Minecraft and show you what it looks like as of right now. I think I've got this instance. I don't have this instance set up. I actually can't show you what it looks like right now. Let's kill that, because I've already modified the jar that goes there. Yes, thank you, Andrew. Okay, so this finished building. Hopefully this works. And let me quit out of this to save my graphics card a little bit. And boot this up. Yeah, the one thing I didn't really get to work on this week that I wanted to is improving the in-cab controls. Okay, there's multiple UMC jars. Let me fix that. Oh, I know why. I've only got one IR jar, that's good. And booting it up. Let's see. YouTube is giving me a message saying the keyframe frequency is not being sent enough, and it's causing buffering. How's the stream quality for you guys? And I'm going to turn rain off. Yeah, this is going to be a little bit choppy. My graphics card is really not happy about streaming and doing this. Okay, that looks much better. So you see how that's like a colored light? If you take a look, I mean, that's hard. I don't think I actually have a video of what that looked like before, and I might show that later. But I think that actually looks really good. The headlights aren't as bright, but it's a heck of a lot less hacky. So like these, if you look in the, if you look at some of the YouTube videos I've posted, I think it's the light demo number 2, you can see that these are just a bright white, and there's no color whatsoever to them. I mean, the shaders definitely modify them, but this, I think, is actually the right way to go. So these, at least in default Minecraft, won't be nearly as bright, but I think the effect is significantly better, especially with shaders turned on. So I think I still want to have the ability to set something to absolutely full bright, which I think is what I'm doing here, which actually can cause some weird issues. So if you look at, let's see if I go out far enough. Yeah, so if I go to here, you can see that through the light cone, you can actually see a bit of track coming through. It's because of the rendering order in Minecraft and some of the hacks I'm doing. Yeah, but I'm pretty darn happy with that. And this means that, so the way I'm doing this, colored lights don't work, but that's pretty cool. And for reference, if anyone's curious, I am using the Bsl Shader, version 8. Let's see. And I still have the light cone. So the cast light cone, I do want to improve a little bit, so it looks a little bit more realistic, but I'm just happy it works at all. I know Wrong posted some images during the week where the light cone wasn't updated by Optifine properly, and I don't know if it's something changes on a system-by-system basis or what's going on, but it's a little funky. Also, one thing that I also want to play with this week is you see how that piece of track is significantly brighter just because the light cone is on this area? I can't ever perfectly fix this. I'll preface with that. But what I could do is take an average of along the track in a couple different locations, what are the light levels? That way, it's not just a if you've got a torch right, if I put a glowstone. Actually, I'll come over to this one, which will be easier to see. I think this is the center of the track. Yes, where these are. Okay, so you see if I put a piece of glowstone there, the whole thing lights up. I think if I do it right, I could do a couple samples, and it would still get a little bit brighter, but it would take the average brightness across the whole piece of track. So, I think what I'm going to do is, so right now you can see how this is just kind of a washed out white. I'm going to switch the headlamp code over to using the light map instead of the complete light override and see how that looks with shaders. And I'll go through some pull requests and show show some show what needs to happen where before the next release can come out. Andrew is saying that sounds like there's more stuff ticking on track. That's the sort of thing where I could do it either once every, 30 seconds, because lighting doesn't change that much, or when a block nearby the track updates. So I think we could do that without a significant performance impact. The lighting, excuse me, I don't think the lighting is done on a tick basis. That's done more of a propagation system, which is why sometimes light doesn't propagate well across chunk boundaries, because Minecraft has weird bugs like that. Right, so I changed this to use the full bright light map. So let's take a look at the actual headlight. So go to where did I put that? Parts, it's going to be right in front of my face. Why can't I see that? Oh, I called it a light flare. What? Oh, because that class is in the wrong location. That's why I couldn't find it. I'll fix that in just a minute. Okay, textures. Right. So yeah, so the way this is defined, and if you've taken a look at the models I've put either put on the GitHub pull request for this or taken a look in the jar itself, this looks really nasty. But effectively, this is, if you've dealt with HTML RGB codes, it uses an RGB-like value. So it's a hexadecimal red, green, blue. And you just have the light, one of the light groups, if it has _0x yada yada yada, that's the color of the light flare, so to speak. And it either parses out the red, green, blue, or it just sets it to full white brightness. And the problem right now is the brightness. So if you remember from when I was running it without shaders, you could see that the exterior of the light flare was a yellowish color. That was because of the light values set in the model. And this also allows for different colored lighting depending on what you want. So down here, it's texture, image, where are we actually? Okay, light map. Yeah, this is where I do this nastiness. So I'm going to go back up to here, put in the light map, and then I'm actually just going to disable, I think, all of this code. So that's on the main page, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm going to boot this up and see what that looks like. Because it takes a minute to actually... So booting up Minecraft in here is actually pretty quick. Putting it into a standalone jar that can go be put in an instance so I can boot up Minecraft is a whole other thing. And takes like 5 to 6 minutes-ish. Whereas this takes like a minute tops. Do. Almost there. And one thing I might do is have some Optifine detection. There we go. Okay, because like right now that does not look good at all. But with Optifine, that actually might look pretty decent. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. When it's nighttime, you can see that it maintains its brightness level. Though I think I still need some of this stuff in here. Oh, right. Yeah, because it's... So we can do that. So we still need to do the the depth disabling. Is that going to complain? Come on. Why is that not happy? Can I... Oh, I know why. Because I need to put that there. Okay. So we'll re-enable this stuff. This is... I don't like turning off the depth. But as it stands right now, I don't have a good way around that. Okay. So that's a little bit better. Again, I would want to do this differently if Optifine is not detected, but I mean, at least it's still sort of passable in stock Minecraft. But again, it's not nearly as nice. So I probably won't commit this as is, but I think I'll just need to toggle between the one and the other. Hey, Mizco. Alright, so I'm going to build this, copy it over, and see how it looks in Optifine, and then probably after the stream or sometime this week, I'll hop through and try and figure out how I want to, say, use one method when Optifine's not around and a different method when Optifine is enabled. Alright, let me pull up a window, and while this is building, so this is going to be boring and take a minute, let's hop on GitHub. That's actually... Yeah, I'll start with Universal Mod Core. There's less stuff in here. Optifine and multipass lighting. Yeah, so this is the the behind-the-scenes code that will be ported to all the different versions of Minecraft, so that Optifine lighting will work in a reasonable fashion. And I've cleaned up a couple other pieces and bits. The code here isn't super exciting, but yeah, there's a few things that when the Optifine mod is around, you want to do, and when it's not around, you want to do stuff in a little bit of a different way. It's not my favorite thing to have code like that, but given how popular shaders are, it's going to be worth supporting this as best I can. Alright, advanced control support. I also want to real quick quit out of this. So this is where I added the code necessary to do the... It hooks into some weird dragging logic deep within Minecraft. But this allows the immersive railroading code to like see, okay, where has the mouse moved recently when the mouse was last down. It's a kind of a neat system. Oh, and this is something that folks will be interested in. I almost put this out in the patch release that went out today, but I decided against it just because there's the possibility of of stuff going sideways. But what this does is, when a model first loads, it uses a completely black texture that uses like 4 bits of memory? No, 4 bytes of memory. 4 bits? How much is that? Anyways, it uses a 1x1 pixel image that's just all black. And then there's 2 different textures. There's the actual texture, and then there's the icon texture. So if the texture is massive, it will generate an icon texture, which it tries to load first, which might take a frame or 2, and then the full texture might take a few more frames. So one thing people were complaining about is looking around in some of the recent updates, when you have a bunch of different types of stock, it would be loading, let's say, 20 different types of rolling stock with large images would just completely bog down your frame rates and pause Minecraft for a little bit. It depends a lot on your hardware. Like it's not really that much of an issue for me, but it is still noticeable. So I went through and re-added the threaded texture loader. So what it does is it says, okay, if there's no texture, just use the no texture texture. If the icon is now available, use the icon. If the main texture is available, use the full texture, which is pretty cool. So in your boot will probably appreciate this. But I decided that I wanted an actual test build to go out, and a bunch of people to use it before I put code that's this finicky out in public. The code isn't that bad, but anytime you're doing multi-threaded stuff that's also interacting with the graphics card, it gets a little screwy. Real quick, let me let's head over to Universal Mod Core. Oops. And pull that up. Thanks, CurseForge. Really? Okay. So I just want to quickly talk about some of the stuff here. So if you were on Minecraft 1.14.4, I finally figured out why the hell textures were getting corrupted. You know how I said that certain mods and even Minecraft in some cases pollute global OpenGL state? That's what Minecraft does in 1.14.4 and newer when you're dealing with textures. So I have to reset parts of the texture loading system in OpenGL before I do anything with textures. I'm still kind of annoyed about that one. Smooth shading and objects. That was surprisingly easy. I had a very hard time figuring that out for a while. I looked at it like a year or two ago, and just could not get it to work, and then hacked on it for a little bit, and realized that I was being dumb, and it was a pretty easy thing to implement. So hopefully that'll be fun for the modelers to play with, and help them reduce poly counts. Yeah, we had a new contributor for C capacity. I messed something up when porting some code. Talked about that. I fixed a bunch of bugs in 1.7.10. People were posting some crash reports on GitHub, and I got that all figured out. There's also some interactions with Create and some other mods where empty fluids or null fluids would do weird things to IR and sometimes crash the server. And I fixed another random crash. So yeah, upgrade your universal mod core. It's pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at what's going on in progress in immersive railroading. I still need to talk more with Dark about what we want to do for cab cars and independent brakes. The work is moving along, but there's a certain amount of like code smell for like different ways of doing this, and to be honest, I'm not entirely happy with either Dark's original cab car implementation or my cab car implementation. So I'm going to keep fiddling with that for a little bit. I'm pretty happy with how the independent braking works. There's not really too much waiting for that to get in. I don't think I put any to-dos in here. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so actually let's go back to advanced control. So what still needs to be done here? I actually have another to-do to add. Scale for different gauges. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff to do in advanced control. So this is the like dragging. Oh, actually no, this is the wrong pull request. Never mind, that doesn't go there. Yeah, so this, I need to update the GUI. I'm talking with a few folks about doing a more procedurally generated user interface for the throttle indicators at the bottom of the screen, with the potential option that you might be able to override that on a locomotive by locomotive basis, which would be cool. I'm not sure that'll happen in this update, but it's definitely something on my radar. Actually getting the config working and making sure the existing control scheme still works without any interruptions. So this is not a ton more to do, but there's a fair amount. And this is where I needed to add that other to-do, is this is the actual like clicking and dragging around the different components. Right now it only works for standard gauge. Controls right now can only rotate or pivot, and they need to be able to slide as well. I think I can use effectively the same sort of system. I just need to write that code and get it functional. Right now, I don't know how obvious it is. It'll be obvious if you actually play it, but the feel of dragging isn't great. So like if you say, okay, this thing rotates around this point, instinctively you want to click on that and drag it around that point with your mouse. That doesn't always feel right depending on how the cab is set up. Because I put in a very hacked implementation to start off just to get it working. That's going to be real tricky, and I'm probably going to swear at the computer a lot getting through that. Better bounding boxes. Yeah, so if you're grabbing the brake and you move the brake 90 degrees, which I think is more than brakes usually rotate, but anyway, if you rotate it 90 degrees out of the position it was in before, you can't click on it in the new position. You have to click on it in its old position. Effectively, I just want to make the bounding box bigger so that you can click anywhere within that range. It'll work. That part shouldn't be that bad. It'll just be a little finicky. There's some internal wiring that needs to be improved, and adding doors, windows, and maybe some other stuff while I'm in there. Yeah, so that's not too much has happened other than getting it to the point where there's a pull request and this code's a little bit more organized. And lighting support. This is where I'm actually using the light. This is the branch we're working on right now. There's not too much to... I actually don't want to go through the code, but I don't actually have I should put in a to-do list here. So if you're curious how stuff is going throughout the week, feel free to click through and take a look at some of the stuff. I do plan on continue setting up integration branches where I can effectively generate test builds for patrons as I'm fiddling with stuff, so I can get some more immediate feedback before it actually becomes a test build that I want more than just a small handful of folks working on. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's most of it. Hopefully this jar is built by now. That's the whole reason I started talking in the first place. Alright, so we'll copy that over and boot up Minecraft. Let's see, it's 7:26. I've been going for about an hour. Let's take a look and see how this looks, just to see what the fruits of our labor are. And, oh no, that's 116.5. That is not the right thing to boot up. Whoops. There we go, 112.2. Excuse me. And there we go. Yes, Larky, I did get your link. I'm going to do this, and then, yeah, I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load up one of Larky's packs and do some debugging. Because he's reporting some issues, and I'd like to spend some time to dig into that. Might not be the most exciting content, but it's a nice window behind the scenes of how stuff works. Okay, that looks much better. You see how that's like a nice colored light. It's a little funky around the edges, but that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to keep that where if it's running in Optifine mode, it uses the light map like that. So let's, yeah, which is better. So that swamps out and isn't really as noticeable. Yeah. That's pretty good. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty darn happy with that. Second work? No. Yeah. That I'm pretty happy with that. I'm trying to think of anything else to fiddle with. One thing that I need to figure out how to fix is the smoke. The way I'm doing it right now is bypassing the shaders. It's actually its own shader. So I may try and change that up so it's not its own shader. I don't know. It's a little bit weird. Since it's its own shader, it doesn't always play well with the other shaders that are running at any given point. I don't know. We'll see. Admiral asks to be able to change the color via the library system. I'm going to go with no. Sorry. That's just going to be a little bit too crazy. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, that looks so much better in here compared to what it looked like before. Okay, let's load up Larky's pack. Give me a sec to download that. Direct download. Okay. Apologies, I got a lot of sun today, which was nice. Okay. Just gonna have to open up the config folder. Just railroading. Just drag that into here. And I'm actually just going to stop and restart Minecraft. That's just going to be faster. No, I actually don't want to be doing this here. Sorry. Kill that. Die, die, die. Okay. So I'm going to copy that to run config. I'm going to override the existing one. And quit Minecraft and boot it up again from here. Admiral, so potentially, so if I ever do a part, like an interchangeable parts system, that's where we could do that, because it depends on how the groups are set up. Yeah. Yeah, so if you wanted to swap out the headlight lens, that would be able to change what color that that particular group renders. I have to be a little bit clever in the code to make that work, but it shouldn't be too crazy. Yeah. Doing dimmable lights, all I can say for now is we'll see. It's going to be interesting. And I'll try and make it work, but I can't quite promise that. Okay, so that's still in that mode. Let's head over here. Minecraft gauge track. Okay, Larky, which locomotive should I be looking at? Is it a Garrett? Just plop down the K1. Let's go even tighter. Let's go 20. Make it super unrealistic. Lurk, are you still there? Oh, it's the double Farley. Okay. I still want to see how this looks around the turn. Okay, so that's still the same. So you haven't updated Garrett. Did the Farley load? Double. It helps if I spell fairly right. Ooh. No, that's the wrong Farley. Fairly. Unless that's the... Is that the one you're talking about, Larky? Larky, Larky, Larky. Is he still there? Double Farley. I'm not seeing it. Let's see if there's any loading errors. Oops. Come on. Surfliner? Yeah, I know. Test break. Tender. Let me see if that's Oh, that's the wrong file. I moved it after I downloaded it, because I know what I'm doing. Okay, let me re-download the file. And copy the correct one there. That was a waste of time. Alpha to run config. Where's railroading? Okay. Let's quit and start that back up again. Here we go. Double fairly. Okay, so the running gear isn't rendering. Let's see. So, Larky told me. Let's see, where was that? Was that in development you were chatting? Alright, so yeah, it's definitely not loading, that's interesting. Let's make sure the frame actually works. So what's happening is it doesn't look like it's detecting the wall shirt's valve gear correctly. So let's take a look in the log and see what's going on. I suspect it's unable to find all the required parts. Come on. Okay, it's not happy about that, obviously. Let's, Yep, there's a lot of that. Dun, dun, dun. Alright. Cat, I can play with you in a minute. Alright, so, interesting. So if we take a look at the valve gear code, I'm assuming he set it as wall shirts. It will only work if all of the following parts are defined correctly. Otherwise, it does not function. So that looks like a Stevenson valve gear. So if we go to Stevenson valve gear, all right. So this requires a driving rod, connecting rod, and piston rod, and if those aren't detected, it does not work correctly. Let's open up another Blender instance. All right. And I'm going to open up the zip and extract the file. Double Farley. Just put that in my home folder for now. That didn't actually work. Let's try that again. There we go. Double fairly. Okay, so Larky set it to Stevenson's. Come on. Come on, Blender. Just gonna double check the JSON file, which would have yelled it if it couldn't find it, but So that's... Okay, so you set the valve gear to Garrett. That might be a problem. That could be it. I think Garrett defaults to wall shirts, and Garrett is now deprecated. That in the code defaults to one of the simpler types. That would definitely do it. Let me confirm. Library. Valve gear type. Yeah, Garrett defaults to wall shirts. So that I think if we set that back to Stevenson's, whatever the heck it's called, can I not edit this file? Apparently I can't edit this file. Let's go back to here. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. Copy that over, relaunch Minecraft, and hopefully that'll work. I should probably add an error message for when that doesn't work, or rather, when the valve gear that you attempt to apply doesn't apply. Huh. Okay, look at that. It works. Huzzah. See how it looks around curves. It's looking pretty good. Looks like the front and rear locomotive are rotating as expected. And again, this is a pretty severe curve, so it's slightly unrealistic, but yeah. Looks like some offsets are a little bit weird in there, but that can be fixed. Alright, well, I've been streaming for about an hour and 15-ish minutes, so I think, unless there's any final questions, I'm probably going to wrap it up here. Larky's asking, how would you detect if it's a Garrett? That happens automatically. The code looks for as many valve gear in whatever orientations as it can find. I got rid of a lot of the more like tri-wall Sharets, Garrett, and Malay wall Sharets, and just default to one of the basic types now. Alright. Well, seeing as there aren't any more questions, I'm going to wrap up the stream here. Thanks for joining, and if you're interested in actually chatting with me real time as we go through and do some debugging and just kind of talk about the state of the mod week by week, I'll leave a link to the Patreon in the description. Any little bit helps. I'm currently trying to make this as much of my job as I can, and if we can get support up to a high enough level, I can continue doing IR pretty much indefinitely and dedicating a fair amount of time to it. That's not to say I wouldn't work on it in my free time, but this is, instead of having like, oh yeah, I've got a couple weeks here and there throughout the year, it's actual dedicated time on a regular basis. So Hopefully the next update will show what's capable when I actually have the dedicated time to work on this sort of stuff. Thanks again to all my patrons and all the modders and everyone else who makes this amazing mod possible.